Okay, we're here with Chris Phillips from 1% Lists. We're talking through lots of real estate related issues and concerns related to selling a home. Chris's model is a 1% commission, and obviously that's not the norm. And so we're kind of diving into what that means for a seller. And actually, in this video in particular, we're talking about veterans. You have said to me in previous episodes that you work with a lot of veterans and military families. And
Yes.
so we're going to sort of look at it from that angle because that's a very specific and very important angle. It's a large group of people. So let's kind of talk through equity and kind of how veterans are impacted by the fact that they are moving frequently and maybe not building up equity like other people are.
Sure.
Let's just kind of start with, tell me kind of overall, what is your experience with VA loans and military sellers?
So that one, you tossed me a softball. on
Okay.
that. Okay. I am also a licensed loan officer.
Okay.
I've probably done 350, 400 VA loans in the last 5 years.
Wow.
So I know how they function.
Mm-hmm.
We talked in a previous episode about the mystery surrounding the real estate business.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy, the mystery and the allure that people give the VA loan when they're not that difficult, they're just nuanced.
Okay.
So I know VA loans.
Yeah.
I know VA appraisals.
Yeah.
I know how they work and how they don't work and how to make them work when they don't work.
Okay.
So to answer the question, I have a friend that says long story long.
Yeah.
It's a long story, but I know VA loans.
Yeah.
And the VA client, I tell them all the time, like, you're my people.
Mm.
And it's not because I served, because I didn't. I have family members that did, but I found out doing those VA loans that I really like military
Yeah.
families. I
Yeah.
really do. So, and I'm able to help.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all they want. They want
Mhm.
somebody to be honest with them,
Mm-hmm.
somebody to be competent, and somebody to help
Yeah.
when they need it.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
and moving all across the country, oftentimes they don't know where to start.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would imagine it's just a different process. So can you give me an overview of the difference in a VA loan and a regular loan?
They're much easier to qualify for.
Okay.
You have to have what's called a certificate of eligibility.
Okay.
And lenders should pull that the first day.
Okay.
Some don't,
Mhm.
but you got to start there.
Mhm.
And if you don't have one and you're due one, you can apply for it,
Mhm.
and a good lender will know how to do that.
Okay.
There is no minimum credit score, although people will tell you that the VA requires this and that. The VA they don't make loans.
Okay.
The VA guarantees the loan that the lender makes.
Yeah.
And the reason it's a sweet thing is because mortgage insurance usually covers 20%
Mm-hmm.
on like a conventional loan,
Mhm.
or FHA, I think, is a little less than 20%.
Mm-hmm.
The VA guarantees 25% of that loan against loss.
Okay.
So lenders love them.
Yeah.
And from a differing standpoint, back to your question,
Mm-hmm.
there are ways that you can manually underwrite when the veteran doesn't automatically qualify.
Okay.
There are more forgiving standards there. The benefits that they have from a SICRA standpoint, a Service Civil Members Relief Act,
Mhm.
allow you to appeal certain things and to get things off your credit and things like that.
Okay.
So there's just a lot of nuances and a lot of leeway on a VA loan. There's no maximum debt ratio
Okay.
on a VA loan. It's whatever the computer will approve on what's called an approve eligible loan.
Yeah.
I'm getting in the weeds a little bit.
Yeah.
Up to 50, 60%. And you can't do that on a conventional loan.
No. I'm sure you have a lot of stories related to this.
Sure.
Can you share one maybe of a military family who thought that they couldn't afford to sell and kind of how you were able to help them?
I have one for every day of the month, honestly. I'll pick one or two.
Yeah.
And it's not always roses. Okay. So recently, I think 6 or 8 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
I took over a listing that had been sitting for about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy saw my billboard in Fort Mitchell, and he
Mhm.
says, "Hey, I really need to move this house."
Yeah.
So I visit them. They're down from North Atlanta, 3
Mhm.
hours away from the house they're trying to sell.
Mhm.
The agent that they'd had, and this is the case sometimes, and there are a lot of good real estate agents out there, but this particular one, I think, was just happy to have a sign in the yard.
Yeah.
But she wasn't happy enough to go check to make sure it was still standing up. So,
Mm.
every time they came to visit the house, there were bugs in the tub and the sign was laying down in the yard and that sort of thing.
Oh.
So he wanted to make sure, like, are you going to check on my house?
Yeah.
And then let's talk the money.
Yeah.
So, I assured him I was in the market down there 7 or 8 times a week, usually, sometimes
Yeah.
twice a day.
Yeah.
And that we would take good care of his house. From a money standpoint, they really needed a roof.
Mm.
And the wife was not happy to hear that.
Mm.
And I said, look, I'd rather you be mad at me today than 6 months from now talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you really need a roof. Well, again, long story long,
Mm.
they didn't agree with me. They said, we're going to try at this price, see what you can do.
Yeah.
Nobody showed the house for like 8 weeks.
Yikes.
They put the roof on the house and we sold it 2 weeks later.
Oh.
Now, they did have to write a check at closing,
Mm-hmm.
about a $7,000 check.
Mm.
But that check, compared to 6% on that house, would have been almost $14,000
Yeah.
had they not found us.
Yeah.
So that's the one that comes to mind when
Yeah.
you say that.
How does your pricing model help military families keep more of what they've earned? Can you kind of walk me through what that looks
Sure.
like for them?
Sure. So with just picking a round number at 300,000,
Yeah.
it's about the average of the sale that we make.
Mhm.
If it sells traditionally, there's that
Mhm.
word again, meaning that we take a 1% listing and then another agency brings the buyer and
Yeah.
they want 3%,
Mhm.
4% total commission. The difference between that 4% they pay and what might be 6% if they went somewhere else,
Mhm.
2% difference is $6,000.
Right. Which
And-
is a lot.
Well, a lot of these guys and gals have to front the move when they move and get reimbursed by the military.
Okay. Yeah.
That $6,000 sometimes pays for that.
Yeah. Tell me what this job means for you personally. I know that you've said that you love to help people win. You love a win-win situation. You love to help people be successful. You love it when everybody leaves happy. Tell me about why this is not just a job for you.
So I love real estate.
Mhm.
I've loved it since I was 15 years old.
Mhm.
I did a job I hated because I had to for a while again, because of this baby face I'm toting.
Right.
But the thing is, I used to be, really back then, we were 7%. We weren't really even 6.
Yeah.
The brokerage I worked for wanted you to get 7 if you could.
Wow.
And you'd leave the closing table after selling the house in 4 hours, being on the market less than a day or two.
Mm.
And the seller's almost pissed off.
Mm.
And you're like, man, we sold your house. Isn't that great? And they're like, yeah. And they're toting this little tiny check instead of this big one.
Yeah.
And it just started sort of resonating with me. It's like, I can make a really good living and do this for less money.
Yeah.
And with the way appreciation has worked over the years, we're making more money per deal, even at the discount,
Mhm.
than we were 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And people are happy.
Yeah.
People leave the closing table. I get more hugs now than I ever got. Okay. I get Google reviews.
Yeah.
And as soon as they hear anybody that needs to sell, they're bringing me up.
Yeah.
It's funny. I had somebody do that in Lowe's one day about
Really?
6 weeks ago. This guy's sitting there talking about selling his house, and the ladies overheard him on the aisle where the cabinet hardware was.
Mhm.
She's like, "You got to call Chris,"
Oh,
and that's how it works, and it
Yeah.
scales, and it multiplies,
yeah.
and it feels good,
Yeah.
and I make a good living. I
Well,
really do.
and that's great.
Yeah.
And yeah, when people feel like you're their hero in a way, right? Then
Yeah.
I'm sure they're very quick to tell other people about it and word gets around.
Yeah, I won't wear that cape.
Yeah.
I tell my military clients, you guys do the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Y'all are the heroes.
Yeah. So we've been talking in this episode about veterans, military families, and just kind of the specific considerations for them as they're trying to sell their home. So this is Chris Phillips. He's working with 1% lists, and he seems to be licensed for just about everything under the sun.
Lots of them.
General contractor, loan officer, and you kind of, I don't know if you specialize in VA loans, but you have a lot of experience with them.
Yes.
So if you or someone you know is a veteran or in the military and they are maybe worried about selling their house, or they want to sell, but they're not really sure what's involved with that, maybe they don't have a lot of equity built up, that's not a problem for Chris. He handles this all the time. Send them to whatis1percentlists.com. Chris will take great care of them. And if you're not in the military and you want to sell your house, still come to him, because it's a 1% commission, which, as we've talked about, makes a big difference financially. So thank you, Chris, for talking with us. And if this is your first video to watch, we hope you watch the whole series, because it's been great.